Why the Emerald Tablet never made it into schools. You know what's wild? Growing up, we learned about ancient civilizations, pyramids, mythology. But somehow no one ever mentioned the Emerald Tablet, not once. I'm not saying it should have been part of school. But it is strange how a text this old, this influential, this mysterious, barely gets whispered in mainstream education. And I guess that's what made me curious. Why didn't we learn about it? Why does the Emerald Tablet sit in this weird corner of history, too mystical for science, too ancient for religion, too symbolic for textbooks, and too powerful for some people to ignore? I'm not an expert. I'm just asking the questions that have been buzzing in my mind for years. So first, what even is the Emerald Tablet? Well, depending on who you ask, it's a tiny piece of ancient philosophy, or the foundation of alchemy, or a symbolic guide to the universe, or the key to understanding yourself. And according to legend, it was written by Thoth, the ancient Egyptian figure who was part scribe, part god, part gatekeeper of hidden wisdom, and right there. Maybe that's the first clue. Thoth never fit neatly anywhere. He wasn't just mythology. He wasn't just history. He existed in that strange space where knowledge and mystery blur together. Maybe that's why the tablet never made it into schools, because schools don't like blurred lines. They like clean categories, dates, facts, definitions. The Emerald Tablet. Yeah, it's none of those. It speaks in riddles, short, poetic lines that sound simple at first, but the longer you sit with them, the more they open up, and the more they open up, the deeper they get, as above, so below, as within, so without. That's probably the most famous line, and honestly, that alone might explain why it's not in classrooms, because that one sentence asks questions schools aren't built to answer. It invites you to look at the universe and yourself at the same time. It blurs the line between science and spirituality, between the outer world and the inner world, between what we're told to memorize and what we're encouraged to actually understand. And maybe that's where the dangerous reputation comes from. Not dangerous like forbidden magic, but dangerous because it asks you to think for yourself and not just think, but feel your way into understanding. Most education is about the external world, gravity, geography, history, but the Emerald Tablet talks about the internal world, consciousness, transformation, the relationship between mind and reality. Things that don't fit neatly in a lesson plan or a multiple choice test, and honestly, I get why it never made it into schools, because how do you test a student on something that's meant to be experienced, not memorized? How do you grade a metaphor? How do you teach something that refuses to be pinned down? But then another part of me wonders, was it really just impractical for school? Or did the teachings challenge the way we're trained to see the world? Thoth's writing doesn't tell you what to think. It pushes you toward a kind of inner alchemy, a shift, a moment where you look at the world and yourself differently, and systems that rely on structure don't always love ideas that encourage people to think outside of it. The Emerald Tablet talks about unity, balance, self-knowledge, the idea that the smallest part of reality reflects the whole, and that your inner world shapes your outer world. Imagine trying to explain that to a room of teenagers with a standardized test format. Yeah, it doesn't fit. But even though it's not taught in schools, it somehow survived, not through institutions, but through people. Alchemists, philosophers, mystics, scientists who were curious enough to read between the lines. And that's what fascinates me. This tiny piece of writing, barely a page, traveled through thousands of years, through different cultures, different languages, different belief systems, all without being part of any official curriculum, if anything. Maybe that made it stronger. When knowledge doesn't belong to an institution, it belongs to the seeker, the curious ones, the ones who feel something shift when they hear a sentence like, "That which is within you is the same as that which is within the universe." Tell me that isn't a little powerful. So maybe the Emerald Tablet didn't make it into schools not because it was forbidden, but because it was always meant to be found by the people who felt called to it. People who look at the world and sense that there's more beneath the surface. People like you, people like me, and maybe that's the point. Some knowledge isn't handed to you. You stumble into it. You hear about it at the right moment, and suddenly it feels like a door cracking open. So here's the question I keep sitting with. Was the Emerald Tablet too mystical for schools? Too symbolic? Too philosophical? Or did it simply ask questions we stopped asking? Questions about who we are, why we're here, and what connects us to each other and to the universe. I'm not saying I know the answers, but I'm curious. What do you think? This is Mystic Media. If ancient mysteries and hidden teachings make you think, follow for more and share this with someone who loves exploring the unknown right alongside us.